Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the What's Up with Yoga podcast. I'm your host, Kim Struglinski. I'm the founder and owner of Heart of Wisdom Yoga, which is a yoga studio in Nashville, Tennessee. I am so excited for today's episode. My friend Taryn Smith is joining me on the podcast today. You may have heard of her because she just finished a race called the World's Toughest Row, where she rowed solo across the Atlantic Ocean. But we actually met at a yoga training a few years ago. So it was fun to catch up with her, hear a little bit about how yoga played into her pretty amazing feat. And she is just such a wise and fun person, and I'm so excited for you to get to know her. So without further ado, here's my interview with Taryn, which it did take a few tries for us to connect for, but I hope that you'll enjoy this episode with Taryn. Well, thank you so much
Yeah.
for chatting with me. I'm so excited about this. For listeners, this is now our third attempt to do this. Um, yeah, maybe I'll share more about that later, but this is our third attempt. But thank you so much. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast.
We made it. We're here. Thank you for having me. I am so excited about this conversation.
Me too. So we actually met. I was trying to think about when we met, and maybe I should have
Mhm.
been a better host and went back and looked, but I feel like it was 2023.
It was November-ish,
Yeah.
December-ish, 2023.
Yes, in New York. Neither
Mhm.
of us live there. We both were in New York for a training, a Katona training at SkyTang. And I very vividly remember, I think we were going around introducing ourselves, and somehow you brought up that you had just signed up to row across the Atlantic Ocean, and everyone in the room was just kind of flabbergasted and so impressed. And I think one of the questions was, did you grow up rowing? And your answer was what?
My answer was no. I had never been on a rowboat when I signed up to row across the Atlantic Ocean. So it was not, mm, in many ways, something that I wasn't destined to do, but in a lot of others, something that was always going to happen.
Yeah. So why did you decide to sign up?
Yes, it's very Elle Woods, Legally Blonde. I read about ocean rowing in an article in Vogue, and I thought it just sounded like an amazing adventure. And I had this moment when I read about ocean rowing, and I was really jealous of the team of women that did this in the Pacific because I thought anyone who would do something like that would have to be an Olympic athlete. And I learned more about the sport, and I realized that it was an option to go from no nautical experience, no ocean rowing experience to actually doing the thing. And so I signed up, and I felt like something I just had to do. I felt really called for some reason to this very niche sport. But I think the underlying motivation was big sense of adventure, being out at sea and being a beginner. I love being a beginner and then taking that to a high degree. So I got to explore lots of facets of myself throughout the row.
Oh, I'm sure. And tell me a little bit more too about your training process. How did it look moving your body like that to prepare for that? Because I also know you wanted to finish the row stronger than you started, which I think is
Mhm.
so important. And just, I mean, there's so much we could talk about there. But how were you moving your body? How did you care for your body? And then where did yoga come in?
Yeah, so actually training for the race is in some ways a little less intense than I think people imagine it. I would work out 6 days a week. It was 2 days of lifting, 3 days on an indoor rower, and then a day of cross training. And I was doing yoga most days as well and continuing to teach and then just having my own practice. And once I got out to sea, I didn't set aside time for a yoga practice every day, but I would do cats and cows. I would do breath work when I got stressed. I would stretch a lot. I did so many shoulder flosses, so much flossing.
I'm sure.
And now that right, that was probably the best thing I could have done for myself physically out there, just kind of opening up the shoulders, opening up that space.
Yeah.
And now that I'm back home and practicing, things are a little tight, especially in my back. I'm doing lots of twists at the moment because that space just feels a little clogged up. So we're getting moving again, but I'm I'm actually so grateful for going through this period where my body doesn't feel good and I'm not as flexible as I used to be, because it's a reminder of how a lot of people feel when they're in yoga. Most people that, come to a class aren't yoga teachers. And so I think it's given me a really valuable perspective and just shown me that, yeah, things hurt sometimes and different bodies move in different ways.
Yeah, and I think what you said earlier too about being a beginner at something again, that was one thing that brought me to Katona yoga too, was just looking for new things to try. And I've been
Yeah.
weightlifting lately, and being a beginner at that is really cool to just it's really interesting as a teacher to remember what it's like to not know how to do things. I broke my foot in November, and it's not fun to have an injury, but it's such a good reminder of, oh, okay, this is what people might be dealing with. This is what my students go through. This is how my students feel. And it's just such a amazing mental challenge to be a beginner again.
I couldn't agree more. And injuries are the worst, especially when you're an athlete and you're a mover and that's your life and your profession. They are horrendous and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. But I've gone through similar injuries where I was in wheelchairs and had surgeries and all of those things. And it really does show you that at the end of the day, having your health means more than almost anything else. And
Truly.
it's when it's gone, gosh, do you appreciate it when it comes back?
Yeah, truly. And the mental, I think too, with what you were talking about with the row being a meditation, the mental piece of it is so powerful, and it feels like it can be hard to train that. And also, it's simple because all you need is you. All you need is you and maybe a yoga mat. Maybe you don't even need
Mhm.
that. So we met through yoga. So tell me a little bit about
Mhm.
your yoga journey and how you ended up there. And I want to kind of weave together these two conversations because there's so much yogic that I saw from following you on your adventure. So I'm curious how we ended up in the same room that one late fall, early winter day.
I have practiced yoga my whole life, and when I was living in Chamonix, France, I decided to become a yoga teacher. I saw an advertisement for a yoga teacher training, and it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. I had a wonderful teacher. Our studio was an old ski lift that had
Oh,
been
wow.
converted so it overlooked the mountains, it overlooked Mont Blanc, and that's what we did our sun salutations to. And just
Wow.
right in the French Alps. It was exquisite. And so I became a yoga teacher. I started teaching out in Idaho where I lived at the time. And I wanted to dive deeper into my yoga practice. And so I was kind of bopping around and went to New York a couple of times and discovered Skyting and discovered Katona. And what I loved is that it blends so many ideas and metaphors and methodologies, and I love the way you get to use your imagination in the practice. And when I started training for the row around the same time, I also knew I wanted to really focus on making the row a meditation and finding unity and balance throughout it and feeling at home within myself. And those are, of course, big, big themes in yoga and in Katona. And so that's what led me to the workshop where we met.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. You mentioned you've been doing yoga your whole life. Are you someone who was also just an active person in general, or did you have other sports that you played? What was your background?
Yes, growing up, I was a competitive figure skater. That was my sport from kindergarten till about the end of eighth grade. And then I started running in high school. I was never a particularly fast runner. For me, it was just a way to stay in shape and be with friends. And then I continued with running after high school and into college just for fun to stay fit. But I love sports. I love playing sports so much. So I've, dabbled in everything, basketball, tennis, you name it, I'm there. I think it's so fun to connect with people that way. And my mom had us go to some little yoga classes for kids growing up, which I loved, and then I continued that throughout high school and got more into it during college. I think being in high school and hearing the message, learning to be comfortable in an uncomfortable situation really changed how I exist in the world, and I'm grateful that I got that message at such a young age when my brain was still malleable because it's how I live my life now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like, and I don't know if you've had other people say this to you, but I feel like everything in your life has uniquely prepared you for where you are now. And it'll be so interesting to see where you go next. It's just fascinating to see all of that, because one of the things that really resonated with me from I feel like just such a fangirl talking about all your posts, but one of your posts that I think about all the time is when you shared, "I am uncomfortable, but I'm not unsafe." And that
Mhm.
is a mantra that I keep with me all the time now. I'm curious if you can share a little more about that.
Oh, that's so flattering. Thank you. That's like the best compliment ever. That post was on a day that was really scary. So I was on my boat, I was rowing. There were huge waves that were knocking me in every direction, and it was just terrifying, and it felt really scary, and I wasn't having fun, and I wasn't enjoying myself. But I knew the boat's really safe. I was prepared. Everything was functioning as it should. Nothing was actually going wrong. It just felt really dangerous and precarious because of the conditions that I had. And so I think that's a lesson I'm trying to hold with me now that I'm back on land. We experience so many things that send us into that fight or flight. It's like, I'm not unsafe because someone sent me an email and I don't know how to respond. I'm not unsafe because I have to have a difficult conversation with someone. And we're just, we're kind of primitive sometimes. And the technology that we have really stokes fear.
Yeah.
And that was one of the best parts about being out at sea, was that I wasn't exposed to a lot of the things that, for lack of a better word, trigger us on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. Yeah, the first time I think we tried to do this, you had mentioned that you were gonna go on the row, and I distinctly remember you had, like, 2,000 followers, and you were gonna go on the row and then delete Instagram from your phone,
Mhm.
and and then I don't know that I mean, sure, you could do that now, I bet. However,
Yeah. However
yeah, yeah,
however, there are some very cool opportunities from the row, which I'm so grateful for, but it completely unexpected, completely unintentional. My social media manager was my mom. I would send her a video and she posted it for me. And so there wasn't a scheme or a plan here.
yeah,
It
yeah,
just it just happened.
yeah,
And yeah.
yeah. So how did she handle that? Like, what was her reaction as this is happening in real time?
She was also floored. She had to, deal with it though. I didn't see Instagram, so I wasn't looking at it, and she could say, "Oh, you have X amount of followers now." And out at sea, that didn't really mean anything to me because I was so focused on just getting the boat back to land. And I was so grateful for the support, and I felt the love from land. Like I really did feel cocooned while I was out there. So it was definitely felt in a very physical way. But I didn't see any of the comments. I didn't see any of the negative comments or so it just she handled it with so much grace and so much poise, and I'm in awe of her. She was also shocked, and I think we still don't really know what to do with something like this.
Well, you're doing great. You talked a little bit too about, you would make a video and send it to her, but tell me a little bit about what was your connection to the world around you outside of your boat? Like, what did that look like for you?
I had a Starlink, so I could send WhatsApp messages and text messages to my friends back home. And so I did a lot of voice memos, and that was really fun. So my treat in a day wasn't really food, it was actually getting on my Starlink and getting messages and getting to have
Mhm.
some interaction with people. That was very motivating to me.
Yeah.
And so if I worked hard during the day, I'd get on my Starlink in the evening. And the videos that I was posting initially, it was sort of just proof of life for family and friends. Like my Instagram was 2,000 people. I knew every single one of them in person. And I wanted to send a video showing, hey, I'm out here. I'm having a great time. I'm happy. I'm healthy. The boat's good. Here's what I ate today. And for some reason that connected with a lot of other people, which is so cool. And I guess I hope that anyone who found the journey sees that, like we can do really amazing things, and you don't have to be an elite athlete, and you don't have to have experience. I have experience now. I trained really hard and I dedicated years of my life to it, but I didn't when I signed up. So
Yeah.
It's okay to be a beginner. It's okay to be bad at things and go through that process.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you talk about the years you spent training. So about
Mhm.
how many years did you train, and how does one go about training for this? When you're learning yoga, for example, you just like go to a yoga studio and then maybe you find other teachers that you resonate. Like, did you have a coach? I know you traveled to train. What did that look like for you?
I had about 3 years, when I signed up and then to actually doing the row, but I trained in earnest for about 2, and so I worked with a coach who was based out of England, and his name's Gus Barton. He trains a lot of ocean rowers, and so he was the one that gave me my programming for the gym. And then in the spring of 2024, I went to England and I lived on the South Coast and I learned how to scull and how to row on just a tiny little coastal scull. And so it's one of the smaller boats just to get a technique. And then in 2025, I went back to England to a different town and I lived on my ocean rowing boat in a little town called Burnham on Crouch. And I lived at the marina. I rowed my boat up and down the river out into the North Sea. And in many ways, training felt so much more isolating than the row ever did. Because during training, I think people still kind of had yet to understand the journey or why I was doing this. And once I actually got out to sea, then it clicked and people
Mhm.
saw like, oh, she's actually rowing across the Atlantic Ocean now. But training it was tough because I think at that point I still felt very misunderstood.
Mhm. And through your training, did you get to meet some of the other ocean rowers? What kind of community did you get to develop there?
I did because Burnham on Crouch is the town where all of the ocean rowing boats are built. There's a lot of teams that come through and train there. And it's a safe place to train because the river is muddy. And so
Mhm.
if you run aground, you just hit mud and sand opposed to cliffs that you
Uh,
might get on other spots. So it's a great place to cut your teeth.
yeah.
And I got to meet other teams, and that was really helpful to get to chat with other people that were doing something like this.
And I have no concept of how many other people are doing this. It seems like it would be a smaller group, but who knows?
Yeah, so I competed in a race called the World's Toughest Row, and every year about 40 boats compete, and so that's about 115 athletes depending on the fleet size,
Okay.
and yeah, so it's a bigger group than you'd think.
Yeah, it is. It really is. It really is. So you settled when you were on the boat, you were doing a lot of shoulder flosses, you could do some and cows. I think some people
Mhm.
might even be shocked that you had space to do that. So what was your daily routine like when you were on the boat for both fueling yourself, caring for yourself? What did it look like? I think we might
Mhm.
have this image of you just like rowing constantly.
Yeah, so most days I would wake up a couple hours before sunrise and I would brush my teeth and then get out of my cabin and I would get onto my seat and start rowing. So I'd row for a couple hours and then have a little breakfast, which was normally a granola bar and some fruit snacks or crackers. And then I'd row a while longer and by noon, I would get back into my cabin and I would take a midday fix. So I'd write down in a little journal my longitude and latitude and check to make sure all of the equipment was working. Then I would keep rowing throughout the afternoon, pausing to have snacks whenever I had to go to the bathroom or change my music. I didn't have a very tight schedule. It was very, very go with the flow. Some people are more regimented. That's just
Mm.
not me. It never has been. It never will be. I've tried to have the routine. I've tried to have the discipline for that. It's not how I operate. But in the evenings, I'd send a video to my mom. Then I would have dinner, which was a backpacking meal, have a little sunset moment, and then row a couple hours into the dark and then sleep for I'd lay down for 7 or 8 hours at night. I wasn't always sleeping that whole time, but I was at least resting my body.
Yeah. How do you even like figure out how to pack food for this? Like how much food where did you pack it?
Yes, I had 85 days worth of food. That would definitely be on the long end of an ocean row. I was expecting the journey would take me closer to 60 days. It took 46
Mhm,
because we had phenomenal conditions. And
mhm.
every day I had 4,000 calories. There were two backpacking meals a day, a backpacking dessert, and then a snack pack full of candy bars, nuts, crackers, fruit snacks. I found that while I was out there, just didn't get hungry. And so normally I'd have one backpacking meal a day and then half of my snack pack. And I just didn't have an appetite. But when I got back to land, I was so hungry all of the time. And that first week, I just could not stop eating. I was
Yeah.
so hungry.
Yeah.
Now I've been back for about a month and a half now, and things are starting to even out, and I have just a regular appetite again, which is
Yeah.
good.
Did you crave anything in particular when you got back?
Not particularly. I didn't have food cravings while I was out there. I think some people do. I
Yeah.
just would dream about not eating because I was kind of disgusted by the food. It's all, processed, prepackaged stuff.
Mhm,
And so I
mhm.
would just think, oh, thank goodness I'm going to be back on land and I won't have to eat. But I did really enjoy that first gin and tonic. That was my first meal. And I had some fresh fruit. So that was a good combo.
Yeah.
And
A great
it was
combo.
yeah, that was great, and then that night, I went out to eat with a friend, and she brought me this plate of barbecue chicken, and I was wearing a white dress, but I just sort of became a feral animal and just started scarfing up the barbecue chicken, and it wasn't very polite or ladylike, but it tasted really good.
Yeah, if ladylike is overrated, who cares?
Exactly,
I
exactly.
also can imagine, like, wanting stuff that has, like, a crunch to it too, like a nice fresh salad. I feel like that would be
Yeah.
'cause you can't do that, when
Mhm.
everything has the same texture, so
Yes. It was nice to have, yeah, fruits and veggies and cold stuff. I really craved, like, cold iced matcha. That was kind of the one thing that I'd dream about.
my gosh, I'm sure I mean, like, everything was the same temperature all the time, right? I mean
Mhm. Everything was yeah, just air temperature, so, like, 70 degrees, yeah.
I mean, that's something I didn't even think about. I'm a girl who drinks my iced coffee every day. I couldn't survive 46 days without my iced coffee.
Yes, I missed those things a lot. I didn't drink coffee while I was out there. Mhm.
That's
Yes.
wild. Little things that come up. I'm curious, speaking of that, what do you miss about being at sea?
I love day-to-day life out there. It was really fun for me, and so I, got to listen to music all day, I got to row all day, and I had such a rush of endorphins and adrenaline, and it was unmatched freedom, and to have such a singular goal and such an intense purpose is also very freeing. So no matter how big the weather got, no matter how scared I wasn't experiencing any sort of existential crisis because I just needed to get to land. And so that was lovely.
What a ride. What a wild experience to have. That's wild. I almost feel bad asking this question, but was there anything you missed about being on land while you were at sea?
Yes, there are parts about ocean rowing that are very uncomfortable. So towards
Sure.
the end, as I got closer and closer to Antigua, the cabins and the boats get really hot and condensation accrues on the cabins and then it drips down. And so at night, I would have water drip on my foot, which is a disgusting feeling. It's so gross.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was gross. So having a dry bed is really nice. Obviously, my
Yeah.
friends and family.
Yeah.
And I really missed doing my hair and just doing some of the things that make me feel like a girl. I didn't
Yeah.
feel like a girl at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. I can
Yeah.
imagine. That was also one of the things I thought of was like, how does stuff dry in on the boat and in the boat and logistics?
Yeah, it was pretty dry the first month, and then it started raining all of the time, and we had big waves coming over the deck, and at that point, everything was damp all of the time.
Ugh, yeah. Once that happens, it feels like nothing ever dries again.
Yeah, it
I
did.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to shift gears back to yoga a little bit more. Although this may actually not be yoga related, but I'm curious, your first teacher of any kind who really stuck with you and has stuck with you, is there someone that comes to mind for you?
There are a couple. I've kind of coaches my whole life, and I think being coachable is a really important skill. And so, of course, my ice skating coach, my piano teacher, but one of the teachers I really liked, her name's Nancy, and she taught Hot 26 class that I love. And she had the same script, and she uses the same script for every class. And that's where I first heard learning to be comfortable in an uncomfortable situation. And I've really carried that with me throughout my life. And then I had a college professor, and she teaches at the same studio. And getting to be in her classes was such an inspiration to me because she's a really joyful person and she doesn't take it seriously. And that's how I teach as well. I'm not a serious teacher. I like it to be playful and funny and laugh. And it's not pretentious and there's nothing to achieve really. It's just about being in community and moving together and feeling good. And so those two teachers really influenced how I see the world.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. I love that. I'm also curious. We talked about that breathing was really important during this process, and I'm curious if you had any favorite techniques that you can share or anything that sort of was top of mind of like, these are things that really got me through my days.
Yes, I used a lot of Nadi Shodhana, so alternate nostril breath work really helped balance things out. And then whenever there were big moments and I felt a lot of fear and anxiety, I would do the in, out. So take a big breath in, pause, take another sip, and then sigh out through the mouth. And that's something I do every day. It's just a tool to have in your kit, and I love that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
tell me a little bit too about when you teach. What does a yoga class with Taryn look like? What's your vibe, your style? What do you think students experience during your classes?
Yes. So I like to begin classes with a meditation, either sitting or lying down. And maybe I have a couple thoughts for the day, or I'll bring in some poetry. I think Mary Oliver complements a yoga class wonderfully. I love Judy Lassiter's Living Your Yoga. Love that book. There's every sentence is just a little pearl of wisdom. But I like to draw in different ideas from like outside of yogic philosophy. I think bringing in poetry, bringing in imagination and metaphor is a really nice way to just settle the mind and really embody the practice. And then in my practice, there's a warm up, obviously some cats and cows. We're going to get things moving, twisting around. I really like a spherical practice. So making yourself well rounded and bouncy so you can be resilient and bounce back from things. And then I always like playing with, we're going to do something tough and then take a break. And we're going to do another thing that's really challenging. And then we're going to take a little break and do a child's pose. So I kind of, push things and pull it back throughout the practice. And then have a cool down at the end and a similar meditation. We'll probably do some breath work either at the beginning or in the middle. And then love a good Shavasana at the end, which isn't a super Katona thing to do, but I can't do a practice without it. And
Yeah.
then end maybe by revisiting the same passage that we started with.
Cool. Love it. Ugh, I hope one day I get to come take classes with you somewhere in person. That would be so delightful. But it's fun to
Likewise.
it's fun to like have a painting of your class. I can imagine it. I will say, I know that you did this to benefit Girls on the Run, and was chapter in Nebraska, or was it a broader organization?
While I was out at sea, I got to represent Girls on the Run Nebraska. So the Nebraska chapter. And it was amazing to partner with this organization because they teach girls how to be strong and confident and be leaders and set goals all through a running-based curriculum. But the running that they do isn't about beating anyone. It's not about achieving a certain time. It really is about developing strength and community and those skills that you'll use throughout the rest of your life. And so it was such a natural partner for the row. And the world's a better place when girls do sports. And I think it's such an important way to connect and to build that camaraderie and learn how to be coachable and really be strong. I think, yeah. And I also think the world's a better place when boys do sports, but I'm a girl, so I decided to represent a girls' organization.
Love it. When anyone does sports, when anyone does anything cooperative, but I think especially
Mm.
girls, and again, to what you said, teaching girls at younger ages how to be strong.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think they're doing amazing work, and it was so incredible how supportive everyone was of Girls on the Run while I was out there.
I love that. I love that. Okay, this may be the $1 million question. Are you going to row again?
I don't feel particularly called to. I had such an amazing row, and nothing could be that perfect again. And
Yeah.
it also it was amazing, and it was so much fun, but it took so much out of my life. And just getting to the start line, it's honestly what I'm more proud of than actually
Yeah.
doing the row, is just making it happen. And so at this point, I'm excited to continue building the things I built while I was out there, but like doing it with friends and being with family and, having maybe a little bit of a social life.
Yeah. 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 But these are very important things. These are very important things. That's honestly
Yeah.
kind of what I thought you would say. I honestly would have been shocked if you had said, yes, I'm going to do this again, because I kind of can't imagine trying to replicate it. So I love hearing that.
I think it's okay to just let things be, right? Like, it was great. It was in my mind perfect. And we don't need season 2 because season 1 was great. So let's not try to force something.
Yeah, that's so cool. Okay, I'm curious too, what's on deck for you now? I know you've been reintegrating. It's been about 6 weeks. I know that you've got something for our friends who are in Nebraska. If you want to talk about that, like where can people find you now other than Instagram necessarily? Because we know that.
Yes, now that I'm back home, I'm so excited to start teaching yoga again. So I'll be hosting a little retreat here in Omaha on March 28th. And that will be just a fun, silly 4 hours where we get to move around, play, eat lunch, do some art projects, learn adjustments, all of that fun stuff. And I'm excited to just be a member of my community and just participate. I think that participating is very underrated. There's just so many wonderful initiatives happening in Omaha right now, and I'm excited to not be at the forefront of something. I can go and just be a part of someone else's mission now.
That's awesome. And I can't remember if we've talked about this. Is Omaha where you grew up?
It is. I'm from Omaha, and then I was out in Idaho for about 5 years, and now I'm back kind of recalibrating for the next couple months, and then August I am planning a move to New York.
Oh my gosh, how exciting. Oh my goodness. Well, I
Yeah.
have so many questions about that. And I obviously want to keep asking that, but that may be something that's a little more for the private world. So we can talk about that offline. But how exciting.
Yeah. It'll be a new adventure. It's going to be way different than ocean rowing,
Yeah.
and that's part of life, right? Is
Yeah.
change. It's inevitable.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love it. Okay, so one of the things for this podcast, do like to ask the hard-hitting questions, such as I often have an emotional support beverage or two or three when I'm recording my podcast. I only have two today. But I'm curious what your emotional support beverage of choice or beverages of choice are or is.
When I am on land, my
When you're on land.
emotional yes, my emotional support beverage, it changes throughout the day. So in the morning, it's absolutely a coffee. That's either drip coffee at home, or if I go out, that's a little oat milk vanilla latte situation. Then later in the day, I switch to Earl Grey tea with a splash of cream, and at the night, it changes to herbal tea. Always have some LaCroix floating around. I always have a beverage in hand. There are mugs all over my room. And yeah, yeah. Out at sea, it was electrolyte drinks, but I can be done with those now.
The only option. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And then another very hard-hitting question, and this is kind of a mean question, but do you have a favorite of the yoga props? I'm sitting here, I have a bunch of blocks. I have three different kinds of blocks at my studio. I have a bunch of different kinds of blankets, two different types of bolsters. I'm curious if you have a favorite yoga prop to use.
Yes. I love a really chunky cork block. Kind that are kind of heavy and they're sturdy. You can do so much with them. Not only can they help you find really lovely alignment and geometry and shapes, you can use them to sit on in meditation. You can hold them over your head and practice some resilience that way. You can stand on them and swing your legs around. They're so fun. And I use a block in every single one of my practices that I do myself or that I teach.
I love a good block. Okay, and
Yeah.
then this
What's
is
yours?
oh, what's mine? Oh
Yeah.
gosh. Lately, I would say mine is the yoga chair. I will say you can buy yoga chairs online for very expensive. Or you can go to Home Depot or Lowe's or Walmart or your local big store and buy, as long as you buy a metal folding chair that has a metal back to it, you can actually pop the back off. And it's a great way to get some rage out if you need to, or some stress, because you just like rip the metal off, and then sand it down. I put some tape over, so I DIY'd all my yoga chairs. I love them because I'm with you on blocks and you can't stand on the chairs, but the chairs can almost be like an extra high block too, which I really enjoy. So right now it's yoga chair, but I feel like that answer changes a little bit from day to day.
Mm-hmm.
That's my answer
Absolutely.
right now. Yeah. Okay, and then one more question. Well, I actually have two questions. One, in Katona Yoga, we talk a lot about the seasons and we work with the seasons. I'm curious if you have a favorite season or if there's a season that you like really resonate with right now.
Mm. I love the season of winter. I love the cold. And I love having a really fiery practice during winter. I think what I love most in life is playing the dualities and putting things just in contrast. And so I love a really hot, sweaty, steamy practice and the season of winter. And then I love a yin practice in summer. And so
Yeah.
there's my cop out answer in a way. But
No, I love
yeah.
it. No, I love that. Yeah, that was beautiful. I'm also curious too. I'm huge on the body as a house meditation, which I think I've talked about on the podcast. I'm curious if you feel a calling or feel very comfy in any particular room of the house right now. Is there anywhere that like you really feel like you're hanging out?
I have spent so much time hanging out in my bedroom and in my attic and where all things memory and future. So I am starting to write a book, which is exciting. And so it's this, again, kind of juxtaposition of it's something that I'm thinking about for the future and it's something that's going to happen in the future, but all of my time is spent reflecting on my life right now and thinking about everything that's brought me to this moment while also starting to plan for what's next. And so everything's very cerebral at the moment.
Also, I'm so excited. I will be your number one pre-order fan when you have, I mean, I know you're some time from that, but I'm a book girl and I cannot wait to cheer you on and cannot wait to tell everyone I know, 2,000 people about your book.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I'm so excited.
This is
I'm so
this is what
excited.
means the most, and this
Oh
truly is the reason why I've kept Instagram is for friendships like this, and I really can't wait to sometime visit your studio and practice with you.
my gosh. And likewise, I was also sitting here thinking, I was like, I'm starting to plan retreats. And I'm like, well, maybe Taryn and I just need to plan a retreat together. Like maybe that's the answer is we go somewhere together. So
I think that would be a phenomenal idea. Food for thought.
we can
It's a
talk
good
offline
idea.
about that.
Mhm.
Okay, so I think you told us where we can find you, but is there anything else you want to share before we wrap up? Make sure that people know.
Yeah, I have updates on all things yoga at tarynsmithmovement.com, Taryn. And I'll have some videos up there soon. Not sure when that's going to happen, but probably within the next month. And I'll be doing little retreats and classes here in Omaha in the meantime.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Taryn. It's been so fun to chat with you. Thanks for taking time to do this, and I can't wait to keep cheering you on.
Thank you for having me, Kim. This has been so much fun.
Once again, thank you so much, Taryn, for coming to join me on the podcast. You can find her on Instagram at Taryn Smith Movement, Taryn, and her website is tarynsmithmovement.com. If you liked this episode, share it with a friend, share it in your Instagram stories, tag me, tag Taryn, and I'll be back soon with another episode.